students, this is the first lecture on the industrial engineering. This is a 16 lecture series on the industrial engineering, and this lecture is based on the productivity, and this productivity part is basically related to the a subject which is work system design of the industrial engineering. So, productivity is a part of a complete subject on the work system design. In these 16 lectures, I shall be covering the different topics related to the work system design, and these are the productivity, the first one, and then work study. Work study is a way of studying and the method of doing a job, and then with the intention of improving it, so that the job can be done effectively, easily, without consuming much time and the resources, without causing much fatigue to the operator. And this study, work study, uses the two techniques. One is method study, which is basically about the way about the study of the way by which a job is carried out, and if any new method is to be developed to carry out a job, a new job, then how effectively that job can be done, and that is developed for carrying out a new method. So, method study covers the both types of the jobs, from the improvement point of view of the existing job, or for developing a new method to carry out a new job. Another technique related to the work study is the work measurement, which is about the quantification of the time required to carry out a given job, and identify the time which is being effectively used and the time which is ineffective, or which is not being effectively used. So, we normally term it in this subject as ineffective time. So, identification of effective and ineffective time. Ineffective time in doing a given job is determined using the work measurement, and work measurement uses the number of techniques like work sampling, time study, standard data method, and the predetermined motion time study. And when the time for carrying out a given job using a standard set procedure is established, that helps in number of ways, particularly in carrying out the plans, or plans to establish the capacity, or to hire the workforce to purchase the required amount of the material, so that a given order or the given quantity of the products can be produced. Ergonomics is the third portion related to this chapter, in which basically the basic principles related to the design of the workplace are studied, and according to this, the workplace should be designed in such a way that an individual can perform a given job with the minimum effort and with the minimum fatigue, so that he is able to perform for long without need of much rest. It includes the different sciences, like the medical science aspects, or the physical science aspects, or the engineering sciences. So, it is the combination of the various sciences related to the development of a workplace for carrying out a given job with the minimum use of the effort and the resources. Here, as far as productivity is concerned, in this lecture, they will be talking mainly about the productivity aspects, and it covers these the topics like the standard of the living and productivity, that if the productivity is high or low for a given organization, for a given state, or for a given nation, then how the standard of life or standard of living will be affected. because of the productivity, and why we should work for the better productivity or higher productivity. Few definitions related to the productivity like total productivity and partial productivity will be covered here, and the significance and objective. What is the significance of partial or the total productivities, and how the decisions should be made in allocating the resources or redirecting the resources for carrying out a given job. Then those are decided largely on the basis of the productivity aspects related to that particular area or of a particular organization. Objectives means it what if we go for the measurement of the productivity, then how it can help us in doing the job in better way, so that more quantity of the goods from the same input can be produced for the betterment of the society or for increased standard of the life of the people. And the benefits and the measurement of the productivity, under this we will be talking about that how the productivity of an organization or of a state or at a national level productivity can be measured, and what are the problems related with the productivity measurement at different levels. High benefit of the high productivity, that if an organization works for the better productivity or higher productivity, how it can be useful for a given organization and to the society as a whole. And in the last we will also try to give the introduction to the methods which are normally used for increasing the productivity. So, productivity and engineering are very closely related if we see from the objective point of view, and if we see that engineering studies help us to carry out a given job with the minimum use of the resources, that too safely. So, to carry out a given job with the minimum use of resources is made possible by the different branches of the engineering. And if we see that if a given job can be carried out with the minimum use of resources, then that will help us to save the useful resources, and that will help to produce the more goods from the same amount of the resources, which can be made, these goods can be made available to the people of the society for their consumption, which can help them to improve their standard of the life. So, if we see the better standard of life and the engineering are the closely related, if engineering helps to produce more, then that helps to increase the standard of the life of the people of a particular state or of the nation. So, for increasing the standard of life, we have to make the goods available in large quantity, that too at cheaper rates. So, if the goods are available in the large quantity and that too at a cheaper rate, then the people will be able to avail them for their for sustaining their life and enjoying the life. So, if more goods are available at cheaper rate, the on an average the standard of life of people in an state would improve, and that is why availability of the if the availability of the materialistic items increases due to the increased utilization of the resources to produce more goods with the minimum use of resources, then that helps to increase the standard of life. If we see that even in a country, you will find that the different states are having the different level of the standard of living, because the goods are not equally available to all those who are living in the different states. In some of the states or some of the areas, you will find that lot of goods are available to them for use, while for others the goods are not available at all to sustain the life, and therefore, many are forced to live in very acute shortage of the basic needs, and they are forced to live in very bad condition due to the lack of availability of the materialistic items or the goods which are required to fulfill their basic needs. So, if we see that if the life of the people in a state is to be improved, then we have to look into what are the different things which are required for improving the standard of life of a people in that particular state, and certain needs are to be satisfied if we have to improve the standard of living, and these needs are has been tabulated like the food should be made available in the large quantity, that too at a cheaper rate, so that the people are able to fulfill their energy requirements which is required for living, and then to carry out a given job. Whenever a physical activity is carried out, energy is consumed, and to replace the consumed energy, to refill that consumed energy, the food is to be taken by the individuals, and that food must be made available to the people, so that their basic need requirement can be fulfilled. Another basic need is the clothing. Clothing is required to protect the human body from the atmospheric conditions. If one is not able to protect his body, then how can he perform better in the field? That is why it comes under the basic needs on which the things must be made available, or the related to which things must be made available for the better life or for better standard of the living. Shelter is the another requirement, where one can stay comfortably during the period when he is not at work, and that house is equipped with the equipments which are required for sustaining the life, and like the furniture or utensils, etc. Whatever is required to sustain the life, that house must be equipped with the household equipments. So, means shelter along with the necessary items to sustain the life comfortably under the healthy conditions is the third requirement related to the standard of living. If we see security, security another comes under the basic needs of for the minimum satisfactory life. Like even one may be enjoying the life by doing the job he has got, but if he is not secure, security from the robbery, violence, or from the poverty due to the illness or old age is required. And another important item, the essential services are to be provided to the individuals of a state, like the medical facilities are required for sustaining the life, safe drinking water, the public transport system, and the education. If we see out of these 5 basic needs, the food, clothing, and shelter, these are to be supposed supposed to be gained by the individuals from their earning, while last 2, the security and essential services, are related to the government or the public authorities related to that particular area. So, if we see how to satisfy these needs, from where we should get these needs satisfied. So, if we see the first 3 of the above, like food, clothing, and shelter, are to be earned by the individuals for himself, and the last 2 needs like security and essential services are supposed to be provided by the government or by the public authorities. Government may make them available, but individuals are supposed to pay for them. Like if you have to avail these essential services being provided by the government, individual should earn enough so that he can pay for using those essential services. So, that is what is here, but individuals are supposed to pay for utilizing the essential services. And if we see how goods availability of the goods and the life can be related, if the greater amount of the goods are available, then better will be the standard of living. Like if the food, clothing and the shelter are available at very cheaper rate in the large quantity, then as a whole it will help to improve the standard of living of the individuals of particular state. And for achieving the status where the large quantity of the goods are available at cheaper rate, it is required to carry out the work in very strategic manner, and there are two ways which are normally used for increasing the quantity of the goods and services which are being produced by that particular state. One is by involving as many people as possible for producing the goods and services required by the society, and another option is that increasing the productivity, that is by making the more goods available by utilizing the same amount or same volume of the resources. So, here both these approaches are actually different. Here first is about giving the employment to those who are either unemployed or underemployed. So, as far as employment is concerned, there can be three different situations where the people of the state either not completely employed. So, by providing them employment, they can be involved in the process of producing the large quantity of the goods, and so that the goods can be made available to the people of that particular state. And another is the underemployment, where the people are unable to get the job as per their capability. So, if we are not utilizing the capabilities or not tapping the potential available with the individuals, then that is termed as underemployment, and that will not be helping much to the state to produce the desired quantity of the goods from the available employment or from the available human resource. And the third possibility is that all people available in the state are employed, means they are doing one or other kind of job, and in this case this employment option for increasing the quantity of the goods available to the consumers will not work by giving the employments, because people are already employed. So, the one option is under this situation where when everybody is employed to carry out the expected job, the increasing the productivity is the only option left for making the large quantity of the goods available, and that means increasing the productivity of an organization or of an state means by from the use of same resources which are available to the state, producing the greater quantity of the output or the consumer goods or the goods which are required for consumption of the society. So, here the alternative option is that targeting directly increased productivity, but increased productivity will not be a very good solution, because unemployment if is there, then how people will be able to earn their livings, and that is why it will be a better option to use both both ways for increasing the quantity of the goods available, that is using the increased using the increased employment and increasing the productivity. Both options should be used for for producing the large quantity of the goods, so that they can be made available to the consumers, and this is what is there. We should use both options for increasing the availability of the goods, so that the standard of living of the people of a particular state can be increased. If we see here, if we are working for the better productivity in a particular state, then area wise productivity can be seen in the number of ways, like the productivity of agricultural sector, productivity of the industrial sector, or productivity of the services sector, because all these things will be consumed by the people of that particular estate. And if the productivity of a particular area, say agricultural productivity is good, then more quantity of the cheaper goods will be available for the consumers for their consumption. And if the productivity of the industry is good, then that will help to make the available large quantity of the cheaper clothing and shelter. So, here agricultural productivity helps to fulfill the first need, that is the food, and the productivity of the industry, increased productivity of the industry helps to satisfy the second and third requirement, that is clothing and the shelter, because if the productivity of the industry is high, then it will be able to make the large quantity of goods available by using the same input resources. So, overall increase in productivity means whatever sector is there being used for producing the goods and services, if there is increase in productivity in all spheres of the activities, then that will help to generate the more resources to the government or to the public authority. So, that that will in turn will help to increase the security and essential services needs by the public authority and the government. So, overall increase in productivity helps to fulfill the last two needs, that is increased security requirement and the essential services for public use. And why should we measure the productivity at all? Means different the organizations, different industries, different sectors will be involved in the various kind of activities for producing the goods and services, and how the different sectors are performing, and where is the scope to improve the methodologies of carrying out the job, and increase the quantity of the products without consuming much resources. To look into those aspects means where improvement can be done for increasing the quantity of the goods and services being produced. We need to see that what is the productivity of a particular organization or of the state. Right from the beginning, means beginning of the civilization, efforts have always been made to look into that how effectively things are being used and how effectively we are doing in a particular sector, and that is why effective utilization of the resources was always in focus, and efforts have always been made to utilize the resources in as effective manner as possible, and but to see it in very systematic way how effectively we are utilizing the resources, it is necessary to measure the performance of a system or of particular department or of the state, and to for measuring the performance of system, one such measure of the performance is the productivity. Productivity helps to indicate that how well a particular sector is utilizing the resources for producing the output, or how an organization or an industry is utilizing the resources for producing the goods required, and here productivity plays a significant role, because it is used as one of such measures which indicates the performance of a particular system. So, if we have to measure the productivity of an organization, which can be used as a measure of performance of an organization, then this is operationalized, or this is measured using the ratio of the output of the goods which are being produced or the services which are being produced a particular organization, and the inputs which are being given. Inputs, it may be in terms of the human resource, maybe in terms of material, land, machine, or any other item which is required for producing the desired goods or services. So, here this is a very simple and very general definition of the productivity, and it is defined as the ratio of the output to the input, and basically it the aim of the measuring productivity is to see that how efficiently the resources are being used for producing the desired output. If it indicates that productivity is high, means the resource utilization is good. It depends on that how it is being calculated and what are the different components being included in the productivity measurement, and where it can be used, means where this measure of the performance can be applied, so that it can be used effectively for comparing the performance of the system, or redirecting the resources, so that the performance of a system can be improved. Expression of the output and input varies with the system for which productivity is being measured. If at all we have to measure the performance of a system, we have to see that what are the different outputs being given by a given system, and what are the different inputs being used to produce the given output, and these input and output variables depends upon the kind of system for which productivity is being measured. Like if an industry is producing the biscuits, we have to see that what quantity of the wheat or the sugar or other items being used to produce the given quantity of the biscuits, like that. Productivity shows the status of a system as a whole or in part. So, depending upon the way by which productivity is measured for a given output, it indicates that how system is performing and what is its present status. If we include the aggregate output and divide it by the aggregate input, it indicates the performance of the system as a whole, or if we see that what output is being given because of one particular kind of input, then that indicates the productivity in part. So, accordingly that helps to see that where and how organization is performing, and where it is required to look into or to take the corrective actions for the better performance. So, here because it indicates the status of a system as a whole or in part, depending upon the way by which it has been calculated, both these are being used as are used to see that what improvements are possible to generate the more to generate more output from the given utilization of the resources, or how the resource utilization can be improved, so that future directions for redirecting the resources to improve the system is obtained on the basis of the partial or the total productivity of the system. And this productivity of a system can be measured at any level, like it can be at the organization level, means enterprise level, at industry level, or at the state level or district level, or as a national economy as a whole. So, this productivity measurement can be used as the indicator of the performance of the system at any level, as it is clear from these four areas. And if we have to say that productivity in the industry, particularly industry will be involved in production of the goods, like water to be produced, or like a pen is to be produced. So, industry will be using some of the materials, some of the equipments, or the capital, or the labor which is involved in processing all these things. So, here in if we have to see that what output we are getting in form of the desired product, and what input is being given in the different forms like material, man, machine or the labor. So, if the productivity of the industry is to be measured, we have to see what output is being produced from the given input resources for the production purpose, and these resources may be in form of the land, the material, machine or the labor. These are the very common forms of the inputs which are given to produce the output in an industry. And because the nature of the input resources is entirely different, like the land being used where machines have been installed and the production is being made, the material which is being consumed in production of the certain goods, machines which are being used to process the material for producing the goods, and the labor which is involved in processing of the material using the machines to produce the desired goods. So, the nature of all these resources is different, and they are so that how all these resources being effectively used for getting the desired output, that also can be calculated individually, like for a given land how much what output is being obtained, and what output can be obtained by consuming a given quantity of the material, what is the output and how much it can be done. And the same is with the machine, using 2 or 10 or hundreds of the machines, what is the present output and where it can be, means what maximum can be done in. So, since the nature of these input resources is different, so it will be possible to calculate the contribution of the given input on the output. That will help us to see that how one input parameter is going to affect the overall output, and for that purpose we need to take the partial measures, and that is why due to the difference in the input resources for a given output, it is required to look into the partial measures. So, it is necessary to look into the partial productivity aspects related to the different areas in an industry. So, if we see that the partial productivity and the total productivity, both these things are slightly different, and the partial productivity shows that how efficiently a particular type of the input resource is being utilized. And if we have to see the total productivity, then we have to see that how all types of the resources being used to produce a given amount of the output being used, means how all types of resources are being used to produce given quantity of the output, that indicates the total productivity. So, the difference is here in partial productivity we consider only one type of the input resource, while in total productivity we consider all types of the resources which are being used for production of the given output. So, and that is why it is defined accordingly, that the partial productivity is the ratio of aggregate output to the individual, to the amount of the any individual input resource being used for production of the goods. Like the 100 pens are being used, then how much plastic is being used for the production of 100 pens, it may be half kg or the 2 kg. So, if we have to see the material productivity, then the 100 pens divide by the 2 kg material, it will give like this, that for unit quantity of the resources how much output is being produced. So, which type of the partial productivity we should measure, it depends again on the type of the organization and the kind of the which type of the resource is more important for that particular organization. So, if here we can see that the partial productivity is the ratio of the aggregate output to the any individual input resource being used for that particular production, and it indicates that whether a specific input resource is being utilized effectively or it is being used very poorly. So, if there are deficiencies, those are highlighted by the partial productivity, and if the deficiencies have been identified in the utilization of a specific type of the resource, then that can be corrected as per needs, or the steps can be taken to rectify the problem in specific areas, so that overall productivity of the organization can be increased. While the total productivity is the ratio of aggregate output to the aggregate input, where all types of the products being produced or the services being produced by the industry or an organization or an state, those are taken into account to calculate the aggregate output, and the aggregate input is calculated from all types of the resources in form of land, material, machine, or anything else which is being used for the production of the goods by the particular organization, are taken as aggregate input. And if we see the total productivity, then it indicates the performance of a particular organization as a whole for a certain period of time. So, here there is some difference in the partial and a total productivity. Partial productivity indicates the effective utilization or the extent of effective utilization of particular kind of input resource being used for producing the output, and the total productivity indicates the performance of an organization as a whole. So, overall performance of organization can be seen from the total productivity. Here partial productivity can be calculated in terms of the capital investment, labor productivity, or the land or the machine productivity, and it depends that which type of productivity, partial productivity will be calculated by an organization for the future directions. That will depend upon that which resource is more important for a given organization. If an organization has invested significantly on the equipments, then the organizations of the high capital investments will be more interested in the capital productivity. If the skilled labor is being used for the production purpose, which is very costly in advanced nations, then labor productivity will be more important for them, and accordingly the machine or the land productivity, depending upon the importance of a particular kind of input resource for a given organization, it is required to calculate the land, machine, or labor or capital productivity. So, because these are used as an indicator where is a scope for the improvement for improving the performance of a system as a whole. And if we see the partial productivity for the different types of the inputs can vary in different way, like increase in the one type of the partial increase in partial productivity for one resource may lead to the reduction in the partial productivity of the other resource. For example, if for increasing the volume of the output, if new machines are installed, then by using the huge capital investment, we can install big machines of the high capacity, we can go for automation, which can help to increase the output from the given input in form of the labor. So, but we may not get the output which is proportionally greater for a given capital investment. So, for a given capital investment, if you are not getting the increased output, while there is significant increase in output for a given labor input, then labor productivity will improve significantly, while the capital productivity may indicate some sort of reduction also. So, it is not necessary that the partial productivity for the different input resources will give the same kind of trend. In some cases increase in one type of the productivity may be noticed, while in others it can decrease. The labor and capital productivity may be affected by the automation and the high capacity machines. That is what I have just explained, that if the new systems are included, that can increase the labor productivity, but the capital productivity may come down if the increase in output is not proportional to the increase in capital investment being made in form of the equipments installed in a given organization. Partial productivity is used together with the total productivity if we have to take any decision for redirecting the resources or for the improvement. It will depend that which type of the resource should be used more effectively and where improvement is required. That decision is made in light of the total productivity for an organization. Significant increase in material productivity may not be important for organization, while the capital productivity may be more important for a given organization. So, whether really one should go for increase the material productivity or not, that will depend upon how the total productivity of the organization will be affected, because as a whole it will affect the to the performance of an organization or in capability to produce the given quantity of the output or the larger quantity of the output. So, the steps to take the corrective actions to improve the partial productivity for a particular input resource will be determined by the way by which total productivity is being affected because of change in the given partial productivity for a specific type of the input resource. And why do we go for the partial productivity measurement at all? There are some specific objectives behind that. One is to see first one is to see that how an organization is performing during a certain period. So, to see the performance of a system or an organization or an state over a period of time, productivity is calculated. Another is to see that how one section of an organization is performing compared to others at the same level. So, to compare the performance of the different systems at a given level, the productivity is also measured, and to compare that how actually we are performing right now and how we are different from the planned the productivity of the system. So, basically it is also used to compare the actual performance of a given organization with the planned performance or the planned productivity of the system. Productivity can be measured by using the ratio of the output and the input, but if we see the concept wise, this productivity appears to be very simple, but its measurement is difficult, and particularly due to the compilation of the data problem related to the output and the input of the resources which are being used. The compilation is a very difficult task in calculation of the productivity measurement, particularly because many times either data is not available or data is in very raw form, or the variety of the data is there, or variety of the output items are there, variety of input items are there, and their aggregation becomes a very difficult job to calculate the productivity for a section, for an organization or for the industry. So, if an industry produces the different types of the job, then to obtain the degree to obtain aggregate output, it is necessary to have the common unit. Means this is the primary requirement, that whatever products are being produced by an organization, all should be quantified in common term or in common unit. Like an organization may be producing pen or biscuits or wheat or the some of the services. So, quantification or the aggregation of all types of the outputs becomes difficult, because they may be different in terms of the prices, in terms of the quantities, and if the data is available, then then things can be calculated easily. Many times the availability of the data also creates the problem in calculation of the productivity, and the major requirement for productivity calculation is to have common unit for the measurement of all types of the outputs, and the same is applicable for the inputs also, that for aggregating the inputs of all resources we have to use a common unit of the measurement, and it is common to use the monetary terms for aggregating all types of the outputs and the inputs. And here this is what I have just said, that the same common unit concept should be used for obtaining the aggregate input, where different inputs can be used for production purpose in form of say land, material, man and machine. And even if we see not only the total productivity of an organization becomes difficult, but many times the calculation of the partial productivity also poses the same problem, because aggregate output calculation is the same as the earlier one, which is which creates problem in calculation of the total productivity. And if we see the input, here input resource will be used in one form, but input resource of one type may also be having the different categories. Like if the labor productivity is calculated in an organization, there may be different types of the labor which is being used for the production purpose, like the helper or the technician, supervisor, manager. So, or a skilled or semi skilled worker, and each the price related to the each type of the labor will be different, and that calculation of that also becomes difficult to obtain, and the input resource in form of labor or in form of material. Materials are of variety of materials are used for producing a given output. So, not only the total productivity, but also partial productivity calculations become difficult because of this because of the calculations related to the obtaining the aggregate output or aggregate input or a specific type of input for calculation of the partial productivity. This is what I have just explained, that the one problem in is that labor is used in of the different types, may be skilled, semi skilled or of the different levels for which an organization has to pay the different salaries, and their numbers may also be different. So, the calculation of the input as a labor resource becomes difficult, and the problems related to the aggregation of the input and output of the goods and input of the resources is commonly termed as the aggregation problem, and this is handled by making or by using the common unit of the input and output of the resources which are being used as input, and the common unit for aggregating the output, and the common unit for both input and output is used as in terms of the money or the costs or the prices which are involved related to the output or the input. And for this calculation we use the quantity of the output and their price. In the same way, quantity of input of the resources which are being used and their respective prices for aggregating the input and the output. And for this purpose, many times it becomes difficult to see that which price is to be fixed, what quantity is to be used for the calculation purpose of material, land, machine, because the things will also keep on changing over a period of time. You may come across the variety of rates, different rates different times. If the productivity of a system is being looked for a period of time there might have been the different rates and the different quantities also. So, to deal with this kind of situation, number of assumptions are also made, and normally inflated rates or the prices are normally used for the calculation purpose here. So, that is what has been mentioned, the number of assumptions are made while calculating or aggregating the input and output. And if we see what the labor productivity, if we calculate the partial productivity in form of labor productivity, what does it indicate? That it is a common measure for the productivity at all the levels, whether it is industry or national or international level. So, the productivity of the labor indicates that how effectively labor is being used, and it can be used as a common measure at all the levels, whether it is national, international, or the state level or the industry level. And productivity of the labor indicates that how much that particular state or the nation is advanced, because in most of the cases the labor productivity is improved by giving the more capital investment, or by installing the new and advanced machines and going for automations. So, these things help to increase the labor productivity. If labor productivity of nation is high, that indicates that how that particular nation is prosperous, or in which direction it is going. It indicates that output per worker in an economy, and therefore, it is taken as a indicator of the prosperity of the people in a particular economy. And the problems related to the productivity calculations at enterprise level are different from the national level, because at national level most of the time data is not available, while at the enterprise level or at industry level data is available, but its aggregation becomes difficult. So, the aggregation is one major problem. Many times if the data has not been kept and maintained properly, then absence of the data can also create problem in calculation of the productivity in at industry level also. So, the type of the measure to be used for productivity calculations depends on the nature of the enterprise or that particular organization. Like one will go for the capital productivity in case if it is of high investment unit, or if it is processing very costly material, then productivity will be more important for that organization, and these productivities will help the organization to redirect the resources and take the corrective actions for the better productivity as a whole of the organization. When the productivity of an organization or of a state improves, the number of benefits are automatically obtained, like the more goods are produced with the same inputs, or the less input also. And another possibility is that the same output is produced with the lesser input, and the third possibility is that the more output can be produced with the more inputs, where the proportional increase in output is more compared to that of the increase in input. So, if with the increase in input, if there is significant increase in the output, then that will also help to produce a large quantity of the goods which can be made available to the people of the society, so that their life of standard of living can be improved. But that is what we can see here. More output with the same input or lesser input helps to make the large quantity of the goods available, so that the standard of life can be improved. And this is the second point, the same output with the lesser input. About this there is only one problem, like that if the output is being same output is being produced with the lesser material, lesser energy, lesser land or lesser machine, then there is no problem. But the moment the labor is reduced for increasing for getting the same output, we get the different apprehension and people have apprehension about the same output with the less input, in terms of that the productivity causes the unemployment, because unemployment is means the labor productivity is targeted first to get the same output with the lesser inputs, and that is why people feel that if the productivity, if people are working on improving the productivity, then it will lead to the unemployment, and the labor is one which is always targeted for increasing the productivity, and if it happens so, then unemployment is created, and that the unemployment created so must be used suitably for the production of the other goods and services, so that they can be made available. Means whatever unemployment is generated because of increase in productivity, those people should be used suitably for the production of the goods and services, and on the long run, if this technique is used, that will help to increase the standard of life of the people as a whole. And the third case, where more output with the more input is used, is obtained, here this is the case where proportional increase in output is more for given increase in input, that is achieved particularly by the capital investment, by installing high capacity machines or by going through the automations. So, this helps to increase the productivity and to produce the greater quantity of the goods available, and this is very effective way of increasing the productivity. It has been very effective way of increasing the productivity, particularly in the advanced nations. In such cases, to deal with the unemployment aspects, it is necessary to work on the both the issues, like the drive for the high productivity should be accompanied by the plans to generate the employment. At the same time, an organization should also focus on effective utilization of the people who are being unemployed because of increase in productivity, or productivity caused by the capital investment or displacement of the labor with the capital investment. Certain methods are used for increasing the productivity, and these are the reduced basic time for carrying out the job, reducing the ineffective time, and these are the two major areas where work is carried out for increasing the productivity, and in detail about these aspects I shall discuss in the coming lectures. So, now I would like to summarize this lecture. Here in this lecture we have seen that the productivity of an organization or of a state or a nation is very important, and because it affects the quantity of the goods and the services available to the people of that particular society or of a state, and if the productivity of an organization is good, that helps to increase the life of the standard of life of the people of that particular state or a standard of living. Thank you for your attention.